Chris, how's your second go at getting match ready? All gone to plan?
Yeah, we think so. It's always a little bit hard to tell, but I think one of the keys to being a successful operation, which we obviously aspire to be, is I don't think there's a club across the competition at the moment that can't handle things when things are going perfectly. It's more when you get little hiccups or curveballs where you need to adjust, and then it becomes a matter of how well you can do it. So, look, I shouldn't even be talking about it too much because it feels like a long way in the past for us. And in terms of the hiccup, if that's the biggest hiccup we need to deal with throughout the year, we'll be going okay. So we think our preparation's been good, a little different to what we had planned out in the longer term, but good nonetheless.
32 degrees, it's not as hot as predicted. We were talking about 36 for a while, but that's interesting for an AFL footy game as well, so you're getting a couple of extra challenges thrown at you.
Yeah, but I guess when the AFL fixture a game in Queensland on the 6th of March, from October that you're going to be playing in hot conditions for a long time. So again, it's slightly unusual for an AFL game down in Melbourne to be played in those conditions, but not something that we weren't prepared for.
They've been looking at you since the fixture came out in October. You've been looking at them since you found out you weren't playing last week. It's a unique situation with the way that the fixture falls like that. How do you approach that sort of element?
We try not to plan our pre-season thinking that round one is the grand final, but it can feel like that through the pre-season. You're sort of, there's a big build-up to the first game, and in some ways, I'm not sure whether it's an advantage or not, but I suspect they would have liked to have been able to see us play the first game to have a bit of a clearer picture, and we knew all along that we weren't really going to get a clear picture of them off the back of a couple of practice games in Perth, especially given one was so early. I think it was the 15th of February, which is absurdly early to be playing games. So we wouldn't have expected them to be absolutely at their prime by that stage. But look, the season's definitely starting earlier. There are some quirks that weren't there a couple of years ago. But aside from them, the majority of the preparation is sort of pretty similar. This is the challenge that you have early in the year because and even sort of watching last night, it's hard to predict. And I think if you make assumptions or if you get ahead of yourself in certain areas, you're likely to get bitten in the early part of the year because, whether we like it or not, the game is played a little bit differently in the first 4 to 6 weeks, if for no other reason than the conditions.
College hasn't missing the next 3 weeks, an underrated player in the competition, really. How significant is his loss to the Cats defence? No,
it's significant because we rate him so highly. But it's every situation is unique when it comes to injury in particular. But if you wanted to bucket this one a little bit, it is in the category of us wanting to be a little more conservative early in the year. My feedback from the performance team, our performance team, is that they may have handled it a little bit differently if we were towards the end of the season. But this is a situation of just take a little bit longer than you may need and get this right to give him every chance of having an uninterrupted season. So my guess, watching him train, is that he'd be sitting there thinking, why aren't I playing? But it's a bit of an investment in our medium-term future. But sorry, the other point I should make, it's not necessarily a like-for-like, but Connor O'Sullivan comes in and plays, and it might have been a bit harder for us to do that if Jake was in the team. And we're really excited about Connor. He's only been on our list for 18 months or so, but it can be hard to get those key position guys into the team. So this is a bit of a loss with College Asney, but a real positive that O'Sullivan's going to play round one this year.
Chris, you've left a couple of premiership players out at this stage. What are the conversations like with Mitch Duncan and Reece Stanley that they're obviously wanting to be playing AFL footy? How do those behind closed doors, for what you can tell us, go, just letting them know that it's not their turn this week, but it will be their turn eventually?
It's probably the best way to describe it would be that it's a series of ongoing conversations that have been going on over a period of almost years with that cohort, not just those two in particular. So it wasn't a case of radio silence and then hit with a sledgehammer before round one. I wouldn't like to elaborate too much in terms of the way we're thinking there, only for fear that things will change and it will look like I haven't given accurate information. But those two guys in particular, we think are going to be a really important piece of our squad over the course of the year. But they won't play every game. This sort of falls into that category a bit. Like Mitch will play a half of VFL footy this week, which is sort of all part of his prep, and Reece won't play at all. So we're certain that they'll play AFL footy, this year, but we're going to be selective with it, and maybe it's a question better directed at them, but I'm confident that we're all on the same page with our plan, even if we don't explain it in great detail publicly.
Just college hasn't been out, change your plans a little bit with Sam De Koning, obviously slated to play a full ruck, but does he potentially play a bit more defence considering the three tools in the Dockers forward line?
Well, if you look at it in theory, O'Sullivan's 198 centimetres, so he's taller than College Asney. So we think in that specific part of the ground we're actually better off. But don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I'm not saying that College Asney wouldn't be able to do the job where Connor could, but we don't think it throws out the balance of our team too much.
How do you handle them having two genuine rucks with your set up in the middle with the way you can throw so many different blokes through there?
Yeah, they're I don't know how you rate them, but that sort of tall forward, backup ruckman is a challenging spot in the competition, and off the top of my head, and I don't like ranking them publicly, but I suspect Jackson's kind of up there. So that's a challenge for any team. Obviously, they don't have Darcy, which I assume would be their preference, and then they become even more formidable, and that's not taking anything away from Reedy. They seem to have a lot of faith in him. So, look, I think we've spoken quite regularly about the fact that we might think about that ruck situation a little bit differently to some other people. We're really optimistic about the sort of player that De Koning could be up the ground. And even sort of the decision with Stanley, he's in really good shape, giving himself every chance, had a really good pre-season, but our thinking at the moment is not necessarily that we're just going to choose one ruckman and throw him against the guns, all game every week. We're going to be a little bit more thoughtful about it, and we can do that because we think we have options now. Would we prefer the Sam De Koning version in the ruck that I think he's going to be in 3 years' time? Yeah, probably. I'm certain he'll get better, but I'm also certain he's going to end up a pretty flexible player.
How is Bailey Smith going ahead of his first official game in the card? Obviously made to wait an extra week, but yeah, I'm sure he's very keen to get out there.
Yeah, for a few reasons. I mean, first game with a new team's always exciting. He's had a really good preparation, so that's given him a chance to think that he's ready to play well. But I'm not trying to manage expectations necessarily. I'll just point out that he's missed a year of footy. And probably it's similar but different to a few of our other guys. We're not thinking that, okay, this is the referendum on whether it's going to work for us. This is a significant step, but in the context of hopefully a 10, 15-year career at the Cats, I think we'll look back and say how well you played this game probably wasn't all that relevant to how it panned out.
I know you've said you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, but is this a team, your list, that can win a premiership?
Yes, but we analyse it more than you might think. Like, I think that is the part that's there's some part that's kind of media fodder, the discussions around the game, but trying to work out where you are in the competition is important to us. It's important for a lot of decisions you have to make. It's important for your list management, and unfortunately our analysis is pretty similar to everyone else, that And last night maybe it's fresh in my mind. It's just, I'm optimistic that our best is as good as anyone's, but our worst isn't much better than the next worst. Like, so it's, yeah, we're optimistic. Like I think I've said over the years, and you can hold me to this, like there will be some point I suspect where we may have to say, look, you know, we're not prioritising sort of this year over our longer term, but it's not now. We're feeling pretty good, but it's, you know, the day before the first game every year, I get pessimistic really quickly. Like you just start thinking about all the things that you know, are challenging and how difficult the competition is. That's not getting any easier. So you've got to fight that urge and push to be a bit more optimistic. And you know, when you sit back and think about it, we've got plenty to be optimistic about.
Will Patrick start forward tomorrow?
Oh, he'll play forward. Yeah, whether he starts there or not, it's probably. No, he'll start forward. Yeah.
Chris, there have been reports this week that Geelong is among the clubs being ordered for third-party payments. Do you have full confidence that Geelong has been within the AFL rules since you've been at the club?
Look, I'm not across the reports, and I don't even know, even if I was across, I mean, like broadly sort of I'm across it, but I have no visibility over whether the reports are accurate. And it's just not a part of our operation that I'm privy to. Other people, I'm sure, could answer that question where I can't. But so, I mean, it's a pretty easy one for me to answer. I'm not a part of it. So, yes, I'm perfectly confident that I don't have anything to add to that conversation. But again, it's the way it's been relayed to me is sort of talking about you know, speculation upon speculation. And it sort of gets to the point where I'm like, I don't even know sort of what's real and what's not. But I wouldn't jump to conclusions if I were you. But we do play different games, so.
Do you feel there's a bit of tall poppy syndrome directed towards the club on being a destination club and this great history of being able to recruit players and keep them happy, that you're a bit of an easy pot?
Oh, maybe, but I try not to think about it. Yeah, I mean, if I expand on it a little bit, I'm not sure that Geelong's always been considered to be a destination club. If you don't have to go back too far. And I think every club, as they go through the sort of natural cycles of the competition, will go through period. Like I say, when Tassie come in a few years, I'm going to get this wrong, but it's directionally right. Brendan Gale might have said something to the effect of, we're going to be everyone's second team for a little while until we get good, and then they're going to hate us. I just think that's the natural cycle. I didn't mind Richmond in 2016. I wasn't a huge fan by 2017. So that's not really a comment about us. It's more just the way the operation or the way the competition and the industry works. But yeah, again, I think if you start thinking about things that may or may not be true, you just end up confused and frustrated. So I just prefer not to operate in that space. Now, if it's something that's like completely within my remit, I'm happy to expand on things and try to be as open as possible with you. But this is something that you're likely to know as much about it as I do.
Just on the speculation that you mentioned, do you feel that the connection between Bailey Smith and Cotton On, the speculation that maybe some put is unfair on Bailey and the club?
There's a couple of parts to it again. Like, I can't comment on the level of speculation because I'm not across it. And I don't want to be. I don't waste any time trying to understand those situations because others in the club deal with it. It's just not part of my job. What was the other bit? Is it unfair?
Yeah.
Well, again, I don't know whether it's true or how much or how serious the speculation. I guess what I do know is the first I heard of Bailey Smith's connection with Cotton On was when I was driving, probably sitting in traffic on CityLink, and I saw him on a billboard. And that was a few years ago now. I'm not sure how much we had to do with that.
Just a broader one. So James Hurd was talking this week about coach pay. Do you feel that coaches are underpaid for the work that they do, both as coaches and assistant coaches?
I have a strong view on it, but I don't really want to be the spokesperson for it. What I would say is my observation would be that the industry should reward people on it. And let's focus on the players as an example, like in proportion to what they do within the game. And so over time, what you'll get is this lack of proportionality, and some people will be elevated and some will be unfairly limited. And we run the only elite competition that I'm aware of in the world where you have a limitation on the football department, a salary cap, a draft, and a soft cap. So there's huge limitations on certain cohorts, and I think the players are finally, in my mind, getting closer to where they should be. I still think they should be paid more relative to other parts of the industry, and you can kind of use your imagination as to what those other parts are. And I think it's reasonable to sort of work out, okay, what's the priority in terms of, or how do you prioritise sort of the people within the game? Is it right that administrators get paid much, 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 much more than the best player in the comp? Probably not. But having said that, I do have confidence that these things are hard to work through, and eventually they'll get there. We've come through. Look, I think the whole COVID reset, where we went from a COVID crisis and it was a cash flow crisis, to all of a sudden those cuts were rebranded as competitive balance. Like, that was just made up overnight. And that's clearly not right, is it? You can't still be using the COVID cash flow crisis as an excuse to artificially put a ceiling on certain cohorts. You've got to be a bit more honest than that. So there you go. That's my attempt at not being expansive.
So should coaches or players have the ability to seek work through a third party, even if they are club sponsors or not? Is that fair, do you think?
This is stuff that I try not to think about because probably to the previous question, one of the reasons I find the job challenging is because there's already enough on my plate. It is relentless and there's a lot to think about. So if you drift too much into all the other sort of parts of the industry, I just think you either get distracted or don't do your core job as well. So what the rules should be, again, I'm confident that there are people that can advocate on behalf of sort of coaches and players and clubs in particular. And it'd be a different situation if I didn't have faith that there were really strong, capable people at the AFL that will kind of get to the right spot with it all. But again, it's not something that I think about too much, and the rules and the regulations. I guess the one thing you'd say is this goes for the on-field as well. What you want is clarity. You just want clarity. And then when you actually understand completely what the rules are, then you can start advocating. But if there's ambiguity, then I guess it's a reasonable question to ask. But probably the other thing, if you go back just historically, I started in 2010, the end of 2010, and there was no soft cap. I don't know when the soft cap came in, maybe 2016, somewhere around there. And then there was another huge reset at the start of COVID. So you've gone from kind of this in a pretty short space of time, you've gone from the situation that you're describing where there were no limitations to all of a sudden there being a lot. So with that, and it's always been the way, with that, I suspect, to your sort of question, there becomes sort of speculation, and every club's trying to either advocate on their own behalf or point out where they see some unfairness or some advantages from some other clubs. And the AFL will try, but I just don't think that'll ever change because we do have 18 clubs sort of spread across the country. There'll be swings and roundabouts, and like we know, as I said before, if Tassie win 4 premierships in a row, it will be because in some quarters they have an unfair advantage that other clubs don't have. Now, yes, that may end up have been, but it wasn't so much of an issue, or it won't be so much of an issue if they're bottom 4. That's kind of the world we live in.
Do you think those soft cap cuts is driving good people and coaches out of the game?
Oh, that's just irrefutable. That's that is what's happened. Now, it's a separate question to ask, has it been deliberate? I don't think. I think that's an unfortunate side effect. But yeah, I mean, it feels like I've spoken about it a long time. I mean, I feel comfortable sort of talking about it because I do have a view, and I think it probably should be spoken about a little bit more. But I'd hate for any of you to get the impression that I'm spending heaps of time thinking about this one day out from when we play.
What questions? Kim? Yeah.
Sorry. Should we be buoyed by what we saw of Toby Conway in the 20 minutes that we got to have a look at today? We involved in some drills, doing some running. Should we walk away with a smile on our face about that?
Yeah, he's making really good progress, but I feel like I'm a broken record with Toby, and put Mitch Edwards in that category as well. We're really optimistic about both of them, but it is going to be a cautious sort of build with them. So, yeah, it's tracking the right way. They're different. Mitch is pretty close to being ready to be let go and get really good minutes at VFL level. Toby's a bit behind that, but yeah, it is nice for all of our people to sort of see 208 centimetre guys who are going to be available at some point soon.
How excited are you about what Dangerfield can be as a pretty much forward as opposed to more mid?
Oh yeah, I'm as excited as he is, which is very, But I think I've said this before. When I first met him, let's call it 2015, even back then he considered himself to be a 50-50 forward mid, which surprised me. It hasn't quite worked out that way for us, but I think, yeah, he's never changed that view that, if he played as a permanent forward, that he could be as effective as he has been as a mid. So that'd be nice.
Last one, Nick.
Bailey spoke in the lead up to the first trial game about how anxious he was, which I'm sure is natural after time out of the game. Will you play a role in settling in tomorrow, and even echoing the sentiments you had before about probably the first of many, but I'm tipping you will be a bit pitoey heading into tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I hope I'll have an influence, but some of how should I put this? Bailey having a little bit of apprehension would be like you and I being extraordinarily confident. It's like you got to look at it in context. He's got a lot of faith in his ability and loves the big stage, and he's really looking forward to it. So he will have. But I think we all do. Like I do as well. Like I wish it changed. I wish you could say whatever it is for me. Like 15th season, you just hit it. You're just sweet with it. It'll all be fine. I'm ultra confident. I feel no. You got to be honest about it. I feel sick. And he'll probably feel a little bit sick as well, but you also feel alive and you feel up for it. Like I think the moment you're going into round one, you're like, it's just another game. You're probably, close to the end. So I think the message is embrace those feelings. Like I think it's a good sign that he's not blasé about it. And I consider it a good sign that I feel the way I do. It means you're still up for it and you still care.